Hey, yo, so you two minutes, your boy Ashton Jackson. In today's video, man, I'm going to be talking about the Dallas Cowboy combine visits. And I'm going to be talking about one particular player in Ashton Genty, who is not a player that was interviewed at the combine, which is fine, just because he is from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So when Dallas does their Dallas Day, they're going to have, anyone that is from that area. If you're from that area, you played high school ball in that area, or you played college there, you will be able to get interviewed by the Dallas Cowboys, and there's no limit on that. The Dallas Cowboys can interview 1,000 people if they wanted to, and 1,000 kids that all went and that fit that description in the college land and everything of that nature. They can interview anyone from that area, like I said. So if you're from there, if you played high school there, if you went to college there, they're able to interview you on Dallas Day, and that will be something that a real list that I will actually take to account, because that's what Dallas Cowboys really like instead, more than the combine interviews, because they're going to speak to the guys at the combine, like Michael Williams, Princely, Umami Yellen, and things of that nature, guys that they really can't really talk to, in depth like they would like. So, so I'm going to talk about that list, and further I'm going to talk about Ashton Genty and why, he's a really great player, and that not everyone needs to fall in love with one particular player come the draft, because you will get hurt when that player does get drafted, and, you had so much stock into somebody that they end up getting drafted, and, you end up with hurt feelings. So, again, shout out to everyone that's doing a great job covering the draft, like Jay Tug, man, shout out to you, doing a really good job with all the great interviews. And then, you got Patrick Nosey Walker, you got Nick Harris, you got really great guys that are doing a great job at the Dallas.com as well. So before we hop into the video, I would appreciate if you guys like the video, subscribe if you're new, comment, and share my video with anyone who you think will enjoy my content. And then also, I'd like to give a shout out to Professor O, or Matt Owen. He's on Twitter, and I will link his Twitter. He is part of Pick Six Sports. And also, I'm going to leave the link to the Google Docs that he does share on his Twitter of all the players that the Dallas Cowboys have met with. Formally and informally, he will be updating the list. And then also, the Dallas Cowboys have met with 3 defensive ends, and guys like Michael Williams, D-end out of Georgia. They met another defensive end, Prince Umami Yellen out of Ole Miss, Jordan Birch. So far, when I look at those edges, Princely Umami Yellen, he's one of my favorite edges. I like him a lot coming out of Ole Miss. He's going to be I have a second round grade on him, as well as I do for Michael Williams. I still have to check out Jordan Birch, but I really like Michael Williams and Princey Umami Yellen. But one thing I do recognize so far right off the bat when I am looking at these lists and who the Dallas Cowboys had interviewed is, just like you and I, somebody who has been, watching the Dallas Cowboys in depth, you understand that you looked at last year's team, you looked at a lot of needs that we do have, right? We are going to need help at linebacker. So the linebackers that I'm seeing right now that they're looking at right now, like Carson Schwessinger, I really like at UCLA. He's an undersized linebacker, but I believe that you can get him sometime in day 2. But Bossa, Danny Stutzman, I like a lot. 6'3", 240 senior out of OU. You got Barrett Carter, who's decent, 6'1", 225. I believe you can get Stutzman and Carter in the day 3. I believe you can get Stutzman in the 4th. I believe you can get Barrett around the 5th or the 6th. But, you know that we need help at linebacker because DeMarvin Overshown is going to be hurt. He's probably going to miss the rest of the 2025 year, or we might miss out on Eric Kendricks. So there's going to be some Shamar James. I believe you can get in day 3 as well. But, there's some players at this linebacker room that I really like as well. But I felt like some of them you can get in day 3, like Stutzman, Carter, Shamar James. Day 2, I felt like you can get Carson Schwessinger. And then, defensive end, we need help as well. They only interviewed 3 of them, right? So far in terms of the combine visits. But we know that the Dallas Cowboys feel okay with edge. They feel that, they're going to get Michael Parsons' deal done. They know that they're have Marshawn Nealon for about another 3 years on a rookie deal. Then they got Sam Williams as well coming back on one last year of his deal. They're hoping that they can get something out of him. So they're not really looking at edge to be a pressing need right now. but then you saw that they interviewed 5 linebackers to tackle. Most of these guys are long armed type of defensive tackles. Guy like Ken Grant out of Michigan, Cam Horsley 6'4", and then you got Walter Nolan 6'3", who's been mocked to us before in some mock drafts. You got Peyton Page, and then you look at these long armed corners, guys like Trey Amos 6 feet out of Ole Miss. You got Jahdae Barron 5'11". Not long gone, but then that's a really great player that I like out of Tulsa. Not Tulsa, I'm talking about Texas. Had great film versus Georgia. He also had really good film versus Ohio State in covering Jeremiah Smith, who was a rookie phenom in college football and was lighting things up. He did a really good job only holding him to like a catch in like 4 yards. Was able to shut down that high-powered offense. And then Will Johnson, who had really great tape in the 2023 game, had also right there. You can see the link right there. You got film versus Ohio State, and that was against 2023, which was one of his best tape being shown. But that was against my wide receiver one at the time, and Marvin Harrison Jr. And then you got Kobe Bryant 5'11". Again, that's somebody that I would love the Dallas Cowboys to draft in day 3. Not day 3, I'm sorry, but day 2 in round 3. That's where I got him at. That I believe that Kobe Bryant is a really solid corner. He can take the ball away. Ty Alexander, 6'1", decent corner, man-to-man corner. Maxwell Harrison, he's been lighting it up. He ran a 4.40, 5'11". Again, he's a shorter corner, but I would love the Dallas Cowboys can take a chance on some of these shorter corners because, if these guys can play, like Jahdae Barron is super fluid. He can play safety. He can play the nickel spot. He can play outside. He's a great man-to-man as well as a zone corner. He's not afraid to tackle. I love Jahdae Barron. But if we're able to take him in the first round, if in case we get wiped out, we got Malachi Starks, who for me is the best safety in this class. I have a high second round grade on him, but I believe he will be selected in the first round. And then you have, now you looked at the corners that they looked at. They looked at with 6 or 7 corners, so they know that they need corner because we're going to be missing out on a guy like Trayvon Diggs for most of the year. You got DeRon Bland where he steps wrong, and he's going to be out for multiple weeks like how it was last year. We're not really too confident in Kalen Carson just based off what he showed us last year. So we're going to need corner. I would love to bring back Jordan Lewis, but if we don't bring back Jordan Lewis, what are we going to do at the cornerback position? That's something that we also need to talk about in depth later in the season. Wide receiver, they interviewed 4 wide receivers, most of them being ex-wide receiver, boundary wide receivers, somebody that you can put on an island by himself and tell him we'll win separation while you let CD cook everybody else. I really like Matthew Golden. What he did in my team, in Arizona State in the second round of the playoffs was crazy. He also had a really great film as well versus Georgia. That's a wide receiver that can catch anything. He shows great hands. When he puts his hand up, he's actually open. And Quinn Ewers would at times throw some ridiculous balls where it's like, how does he even catch that ball? And Matthew Golden has great body control, great route running and separation. That's the running back that I really like. Caden Prother, 6'3", out of Maryland. I have not checked him out. I will check out the film right here that's provided to me for Southern Cal, and I will check him out as well. But he has great measurements from what it looks like with 6'3", played 12 games as a senior, 209 pounds. He's similar in size to Ted McMillan and T-Mac. An inch difference. Ted has 1 pound over him, and but Caden has more experience on the college level than Ted does. But I'll talk about Ted in a minute. But Isaiah Bond, I have a 4th round grade on him. He's 5'11". He's just run past you guy. I think he needs to hone in on his wide receiver set skills in terms of route running and separation. But I feel like in this league, the run past you guys are not really going to get it done. We've seen so many times people try to copy that Tyreek Hill type of mantra where, hey, go try to get the fastest wide receiver that you can and try to put him on the field and have him make a difference. But the difference between Tyreek Hill, who runs faster than everybody else, is Tyreek Hill can run routes at 5'9". Compared to everybody else, you have to be also, that's great that you can run a 4.3, but can you get off press coverage versus a Pat Surtain or DeRon Bland when he's healthy, or Trey Diggs when he's healthy? Can you get off press off these guys? And can you actually make some of these guys pay when you create separation, because that's what these teams need. But also, we live in a day and age where you don't really need to have crazy separation because there's so many teams outside of the Dallas Cowboys, because Cowboys, they don't like motioning. You know, there's a couple of teams in that area who does not like motioning. But when you play for those teams that love the motion, you're going to be fine. I think Isaiah Bond will be fine, but I will not select him in the first 2 days of the draft. I will select him on a Saturday, round 4. If he drops round 5, amazing. That'll be a steal, but I have a 4th round grade on him. Ted McMillan, I talked about him in length in my last video. There's not really much for me to really talk about again. I mean, everyone says that he doesn't do great route separation skills, but apparently you're not paying attention to the film if that's what you have to say, because you look at if you need to be sold on a game, for me, I would say watch the Colorado game in 2023 when he went up against Travis Hunter, who is my player 1 on my board, and a lot of people's player 1. If it isn't him, it's Abdul Carter, but he is the top 2 player in this draft and is the best player in this draft, a former Heisman winning type of player. Ted McMillan messed them up in 2023 when they played November 11th. I would check that out. He had a really good bowl game later on in the year in the Valero Bowl that they played against Oklahoma. He had a really good tape against New Mexico State at the start of college football this year in 2024. You know, we're in 2025, but at the start of 2024 in September, he had 12 catches, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's an Arizona school record, and he was able to set that in one game. And he was able to play slot outside. He was a mismatch, and you just look at his tape. Again, he plays like a true 6'4", 6'5" type of athlete, because one thing I know about Ted McMillan is he actually plays to his size. There's a lot of players out here who are 6'5", 6'6", and they let guys who are shorter than them dominate them. And Ted is not one of those. Ted is his true 6'4", and he plays like a grown man. And that's all I really need to say about him. And I love that Dallas Cowboys looking at him. I pray they can get to 12. I pray that 11 teams in front of him overthink this and feel that he cannot separate. Non-separate your ass all the way down to 12, please. I appreciate it. Same way how they weren't impressed with CeeDee Lamb running the 4.5, and they weren't super impressed with his skills. Thank you. Now we got one of the top 3 best wide receivers in the league. Thank you. Now do that again with Ted. Running backs. They know that we need running backs. Again, I was talking about Ashton Jeanty a little bit after this, but Caleb Johnson, I have him in the 2nd round. I have Amari Hampton in the 2nd round. I think Amari Hampton, Caleb Johnson could be guys that get selected in the 1st round, in the back half of the 1st round, if some teams really love these guys and they have a pressing need for running back. Jordan James, I have him going day 3. I love Dylan Sampson. I got him going day 2. And then right now, offensive lineman, Matt Owen right now, and Professor O, he is updating them right now in terms of the offensive line, because right now it is Saturday and they are interviewing and looking at offensive linemen right now. So Charles Grant out of William and Mary, 6'4" tackle. You got another tackle, Josh Simmons, who I have a 1st round grade on. Left tackle at Ohio State, and then you got Jared Wilson. So talking about Ashton Jeanty, right? And I said at the beginning of my video, first I can speak for myself. You know, back before in the past, you know, this year I changed my mind a lot in terms of when it comes to draft and looking at players in terms of, you know, what I used to do is I used to get caught up in, you know, oh, I really like, let's for example, we really liked running backs coming out of last year, right? We really liked Jonathan Brooks. We liked Marshawn Lloyd. We liked the running back that went to the Jets, Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin. We loved a lot of these backs, right? Then we saw combine visits. We saw 30 visits of these guys getting here, and those guys were not drafted on at all. You know, in 2023, when we drafted Mozzie, we were talked about, hey, you know, the 1st round pick is going to be Michael Mayer in the 1st round. It ended up being a battle between Matthew Bergeron, guard, interior offensive line out of Syracuse, and, you know, defensive tackle Mozzie Smith out of Michigan. And that's what the battle was. All we were hearing leading up to the draft was tight end. We come down to the draft and come down to the thick of things. And once we have audio and, you know, inside videos, we're understanding that, yeah, the combine visits, these 30 visits, I'm not saying don't pay attention to them, but what I'm also saying is have these notes in your back pocket. Look at these later on when it comes down to the draft. when players are being selected and the Dallas Cowboys are on the board and they take a certain player, and you can be like, oh, okay, you know, they looked at wide receiver, they looked at Ted McMillan, Isaiah Bond, uh, the, they looked at Matthew Golden, and Ted McMillan was available to him at 12, but they passed on him because they wanted, I don't know, some offensive tackle or defensive tackle, right, that they were able to meet with at Dallas Day, and, you know, whatever the case might be, right? So what I'm saying also is pay attention to these visits. Don't put your heart and soul into these visits as well. Don't be like, okay, 30 visits are here. These are the list of players. One of these guys are going to get drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. That's not the case. Also, when talking about Ashton Jeanty, there should not be a pressing need, or nobody needs to get upset about the Dallas Cowboys not drafting him, my bad, not drafting him, but not looking at him right now in the draft, or not looking at him right now when it comes to combine, because again, it's already been globally known he wants to play for the Dallas Cowboys. That's not even a problem, and he is going to be a first round ranked player for the Dallas Cowboys. So it's not even something that, you know, which we should be even worried about, because we know he's going to be there. Here he talked about saying he already has interviews set up with the Dallas Cowboys in general, so there's not going to be too much of a pressing need for him to meet with them right now, because he knows he's going to meet with them in about a few weeks when Dallas Day comes, when 30 visits happen in April, right before the draft. So he is going to be part of those. It's just, the thing is that everyone needs to not get caught up in Ashton Jeanty. Yes, we all love Ashton Jeanty, and I would love to draft Ashton Jeanty, but he needs to pass through 4 hula hoops for him to even be a Dallas Cowboy, in my opinion. One, I think the Vegas Raiders have a real good chance at drafting him. I feel like the Vegas Raiders, if they're a smarter team than what I think they are, because I really like the Raiders, if they're a smarter team than what I think they are, they're not going to want to pay that quarterback tax to move up. The type of person that if you really like a player, you go get him. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. If you really like one of these quarterbacks, go get him. I really like Cam Ward. I really like Shedeur Sanders. But if you're not willing to give up next year's first-round pick and a couple of day 2 picks and possibly even a player to move up 4 or 5 spots to go get the player that you want and the quarterback that you want, just stick where you're at. You need running back. You had Zamir White, who didn't pan out, Amir Abdullah, and you had Alexander Madison. You had a bunch of rotation running backs that are, you know, guys that are past their prime, and like a guy like Alexander Madison, you know, Zamir White, you know, guys that are just not that great, right? So I think Vegas, if they get them a quarterback that they like, maybe like a Justin Fields, a Sam Darnold, a Aaron Rodgers, something of that ilk, I believe that, you know, you got that quarterback and you'll just take best player available. I think Vegas will do that. Second, pick 9, New Orleans. Kellen Moore coming back, you know, coming back to be a head coach, not coming back in general. You know, this will be his first time being a head coach, but, you know, coming in to be a head coach, first-time head coach, he had a really good success with having a dynamic back. And if he views Ashton Jeanty on that same par of a Saquon Barkley, yes, I know the Saints have Alvin Kamara, but I also felt that why not have a 2-back system? Leading into my third point being, my third team being Chicago. At 10, again, Ben Johnson, you know, he had, Ashton Jeanty's 5'8", 5'9", and then you're going to have Jahmyr Gibbs, who's not that tall of a back at all. He's, 5'8", 5'9", as well, 5'10", maybe on a good day. And, you know, him coming from Detroit, formerly from Detroit, going over to Chicago, he's going to want a 2-back system. Yes, I know they paid DeAndre Swift. I know they have Roshan Johnson. I know they traded away Khalil Herbert. But Ben Johnson's like, hey, if I could replicate what I had in Detroit and have a dynamic running back, I'll bring him in. Now I understand everyone's screaming like, oh, no, Chicago isn't going to take running back because they desperately need an offensive lineman. If they're a smart team, when you're at the 10th overall pick the best player available. If that is so happens on your board to be a lineman, sure. But if Ashton Jeanty's on board and you want to draft Ashton Jeanty, go ahead and draft him. That shouldn't be no fear. I think somebody who does not have any fear, don't really care what others say, is San Francisco. San Francisco loves running backs. You've seen that throughout the entirety of Kyle Shanahan's career. Every single time that Kyle Shanahan has a dynamic back, so far, Chris McCaffrey, they're playing in big games, whether that's a conference championship game, whether that's Super Bowls. They're doing that with decent backs. They went to Super Bowl with Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman, and they look damn near unbeatable when that Chris McCaffrey. So, yes, I know they're going to sign Brock Purdy to a $60 million a year. They can free up cap space, restructure contracts with a guy like Brandon Ayuk and Nick Bosa, some of their bigger contracts, Fred Warner. You know, yes, they're not going to retain Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga, so they might look at him Malachi Starks. But, you know, because they do need some help at safety, right? So, and, you know, they're also going to need another corner because they're going to lose out on Travarius Ward in free agency. So they're going to need to look at a corner. They might like Will Johnson, Siobhan Ravel out of ECU. So there's a potential. There's some teams that I feel that the Dallas Cowboys need to get past for Genty to even be a possibility for you at 12. I felt like for sure if he can get past Vegas, New Orleans, Chicago, I think it's a very big chance that he gets to Dallas because I think that San Francisco will have a choice to make at either they want to help bolster their defense or make their offense that much better. I know they can also look at offensive line because Trent Williams is going to retire, so they can look at tackle as well. So again, Cowboy fans, don't get too upset if we don't draft a guy like Ashton Genty because there's still so many guys that are going to be selected. I believe that after these combines, after these videos, after these, not videos, but visits and also pro days, I feel that there will be 3 quarterbacks selected in the first round. I feel that way. I feel the way that people are talking about Jackson Dart. And, you know, if Jalen Milroe impresses, I feel like that's somebody who can get taken early second round, which will drop some of the defensive tackles that you really might like Derek Harmon or Tyreek Williams if they're not selected day 1. So, again, you know, going over the visits, Dallas Cowboys interviewed 3 edges. They interviewed 5 linebackers. They interviewed 5 defensive tackles. They interviewed 7 corners. They interviewed 1 safety. They interviewed 4 wide receivers. They interviewed 4 running backs, and so forth. They interviewed 3 offensive linemen. They know their desperate pressing needs are going to be cornerback, starter, and depth. They know they're going to need help interior defensive line, whether they get the Osa deal done or not. They know they need help at linebacker, and they need depth there as well. Edge is something they're not really pressed, but that's something that they're keeping an eye on. Safety is something that they're going to look at, but knowing my team, we haven't drafted a top 100 safety since Roy Williams, and that was a while ago. A wide receiver, they know that we need another player that can separate outside of CeeDee Lamb. We need running backs desperately. So that's about it for the video. Hope you guys have a nice day. Stay safe, stay blessed. Bye.